Hoai Ca lies unconscious in the emergency room, and no one knows if the baby inside her is still safe after that sudden fall. Mrs. Hung stands by the bed, overwhelmed with worry and regret. She can't take her eyes off her daughter. Her only hope now is that the baby will be okay. The doctor walks in with the test results, and the whole room falls silent. Will Hoai Ca wake up? Did the baby survive? Mrs. Hung quietly prays, begging for a miracle. And deep down she wonders, will Hoai Ca ever forgive her? All of that will be revealed in this video. Don't miss a second of this intense moment. Make sure to like and subscribe so you won't miss the shocking continuation of this story. The emergency room felt completely frozen. The steady sound of the ventilator and the quiet beeping of the medical machines were the only things breaking the silence. Everything in the room seemed pressed down by an invisible weight. Hoai Ca lay there completely still on the hospital bed. Her face was pale, sweat covered her forehead, and her eyes stayed tightly shut without a single response. It looked like she was in a deep sleep, but no one knew if she would ever wake up. Mrs. Hung stood beside the bed, gripping a handkerchief soaked with her own sweat as she tried to steady herself. Her eyes never left her daughter, not even for a second. Her heart tightened over and over again, the fear rising inside her like a wave she couldn't escape. She had never felt this helpless before. It was like being trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. She couldn't understand why this had to happen to Hoai Ca. She had reminded her to be careful when going out, but life is full of things no one can predict. The image of yesterday's fall at the market kept replaying in her mind, the moment when Hoai Ca slipped and for a split-second time just stopped. Then came the panic, the rush to the hospital, and the terrifying moment when her daughter didn't open her eyes again. The doctors had ordered a series of tests, and now all Mrs. Hung could do was sit and wait. She kept asking herself whether the fall had harmed the baby. Was the child okay? Was there any danger to the pregnancy? The questions circled in her mind endlessly, making it hard for her to even breathe. A few nurses walked past, but Mrs. Hung couldn't bring herself to speak. Every step they took reminded her how powerless she was. She wanted to ask, wanted to know anything about Hoai Ca's condition, but the words just wouldn't come out. Her throat felt tight, and her heart was too exhausted to form a sound. Time dragged on painfully. 1 hour, 2 hours, then 3. No updates, no answers. Mrs. Hung kept her eyes on the emergency room doors, praying for the doctor to appear. Everything around her blurred, except for the sound of her daughter's breathing and the harsh light shining down from the cold hospital lamps. Finally, the doctor appeared. Mrs. Hung jumped to her feet, staring at him as he approached, as if she could pull the answers out of him by sheer will. He held the test results in his hand. The serious look in his eyes wasn't cold, but it wasn't reassuring either. He looked at her, then slowly opened the paper. Her body trembled. Her hands tightened together. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat. The entire room seemed to stop. "Doctor, what do the results say?" Her voice cracked. She could barely push the words out as all her fear gathered at the back of her throat. Cold sweat trickled down her face, making the moment even harder to endure. The doctor shook his head gently and looked at her with deep sympathy. He didn't say a word. He simply stepped out of the room. It felt like a silent blow straight to her chest. Mrs. Hung's heart clenched painfully. Something inside her broke open, and all she could do was stand there frozen. swallowed by a wave of emptiness she didn't know how to survive. Mrs. Hung stood alone in the emergency room, the air thick with fear. The door opened and the doctor walked in with a serious, focused expression. The moment she saw him, she closed her eyes for a second. Part of her already knew the truth was coming, but another part wasn't ready to hear it. She stayed completely still, feeling her anxiety slowly rise with every passing second. It crawled through her body, tightening her chest and making her hands slick with sweat. She twisted her fingers together, trying to hold herself together. She had been through a lot in life, but this worrying about Hoai Ca and the baby she was carrying felt like too much. Her mind spun, her pulse wouldn't calm down. How long had she been standing there before the doctor returned? She wasn't sure. All she could do was wait and hope. Hope that he would bring good news. Hope that both her daughter and the baby would survive. But deep down, a quiet growing fear whispered that things might not go the way she prayed for. The doctor finally stopped in front of her. His eyes were gentle, full of sympathy, but also steady, like someone who was about to deliver something important. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the test results. The cold hospital lights made everything look faded, even the writing on the paper. "Mrs. Hung, we have the test results," he said, his voice calm but firm. The moment he looked into her eyes, time seemed to stop. A heavy silence fell over the room. Her heart pounded so hard she could feel it in her throat as she searched his face for any hint of what he was about to say. But he stayed quiet, almost painfully quiet. She didn't dare breathe. She didn't dare ask. Every second that passed felt like a dark cloud pressing down on her, making her chest tighten even more. She wanted reassurance, but she was terrified the truth would break her. The doctor slowly opened the results, the light making the letters look even blurrier. Mrs. Hung didn't look at the paper. She kept her eyes on his face, waiting, bracing herself. Her heart was beating like a drum. Finally, the doctor spoke gently. "Mrs. Hung, you can relax. The test results show that the baby is stable. There's no sign of any complications." The words hit her like a breath of fresh air. Just like that, the storm inside her cracked open, and she felt light again, like she had just walked out of something terrible. For a moment, she couldn't believe what she heard. The baby was okay. After all the fear, after all the hours standing by that hospital bed, she could finally breathe. Her hands shook, and tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them. But they weren't tears of fear anymore, they were tears of relief. Her grandchild was alive, safe, still holding on. But then another feeling rose in her chest, worry for Hoai Ca. She turned and looked at her daughter. Hoai Ca was still lying there motionless. Even with the reassurance that her condition was stable, Mrs. Hung's heart stayed heavy. This was her only daughter. She had watched her fight through so many hardships, stay strong through so many storms. And now seeing her unconscious on that bed tore her apart all over again. The doctor reminded her softly that Hoai Ca needed rest and close monitoring. "She's stable," he said. "She will wake up. She just needs time." His voice was comforting, but the worry didn't leave her completely. She knew she couldn't step away, not now. She needed to be there. She needed to protect her. She thanked the doctor and walked back to the bedside. The room remained quiet, the machines humming softly in the background. Mrs. Hung gently sat down beside her daughter and looked at Hoai Ca's peaceful face. She didn't respond, but the atmosphere felt calmer, warmer. She reached out and touched her forehead. Her skin was warm. For the first time that day, something eased inside her. Just a little. Enough to breathe again. Enough to hope again. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but at least now she knew the baby was safe, and Hoai Ca would wake up, and maybe, just maybe, they could start over. Hoai Ca still lay there motionless on the hospital bed. Her body looked drained of all strength, as if life itself had slipped away from her. The room was completely silent, except for the steady beeping of the monitors and the cold hospital lights, casting pale shadows across her face. Every beep felt like a reminder to Mrs. Hung that her daughter still hadn't woken up, that she was still trapped in the danger life had thrown at her. But beside her, Mrs. Hung didn't move. She sat there like time itself had paused. Her eyes never left her daughter's face. She leaned closer, gripping Hoai Ca's hand with both of hers, hoping somehow that she could give her strength, hoping that the warmth of her touch meant her daughter was still with her. Each shallow breath from Hoai Ca made her heart tighten all over again. That familiar helplessness rose inside her once more. She looked at Hoai Ca's still face, eyes shut tight, no sign of waking. All she wanted more than anything was to hear her call Mom again, just like before. But deep down, she knew some things can't be forced, no matter how badly you want them. She had lived too long carrying regret for mistakes she couldn't take back. Now she wanted only one thing: for her daughter to open her eyes so she could fix everything. She leaned down, pressing her ear close to Hoai Ca's head, listening to her faint breathing. Even that thin, fragile warmth was enough to shake her heart. In the dim, quiet room, she whispered, her voice hoarse and breaking, "Please, my daughter, you have to wake up. You have to live. I still need you." It came out like a desperate prayer, something pulled straight from the deepest part of her. It was a promise, an apology, a plea for a second chance. To her, Hoai Ca wasn't just a daughter. She was everything she had left. And the baby she carried wasn't just a life he or she was hope, a reason to keep going, to keep fighting, to keep believing that things could still be repaired. The past couldn't be erased, but she wasn't ready to give up. Every time she looked at her daughter, one question tormented her. Would Hoai Ca ever forgive her? Would her daughter still want a mother like her? The tears finally spilled over. They weren't tears for the baby anymore. She already had the reassurance that the pregnancy was stable. These tears were for their relationship, for the things left unsaid, the mistakes that hadn't been forgiven. She wondered if her daughter would still want her protection, her presence, or even her love after everything that had happened. She squeezed Hoai Ca's hand again, feeling the coldness in her fingers. It scared her how distant and fragile it felt. But even so, a small spark of hope lit up inside her. She believed Hoai Ca would wake up. She had to, and if she did, maybe they could start over. Maybe she could fix what she ruined. Maybe she could make up for all the mistakes that had driven them apart. Life had taken so much from her family. Loved ones, pieces of her heart she never got back. But now, looking at her daughter lying there, she realized that maybe she still had one last chance. One chance to rebuild what was broken. One chance to create a relationship without fear, without resentment. A relationship where she could finally be the mother her daughter needed. She lifted her head and looked at Hoai Ca again. Her eyes were still filled with worry, but there was something gentler there now, a calm she hadn't felt before. She didn't know what the future would bring, but the hopelessness was gone. She believed it now. Hoai Ca would wake up, and when she did, Mrs. Hung would be right there. She would tell her she loved her. She would apologize for everything. She would spend the rest of her days making things right. She didn't know if her daughter would forgive her, but she hoped that someday Hoai Ca would see that her love was real, that it never changed, no matter how many years or mistakes had passed. She squeezed Hoai Ca's hand one more time, a little tighter, her eyes glimmering with hope. No matter what happened next, she knew this. She would stay right here, by her daughter's side, until she woke up, until she found her way back. And if possible, she would do everything in her power to heal what was broken, so that Hoai Ca would never have to carry the weight of everything alone again. The hallway outside the emergency room was cold, brighter than it needed to be, and painfully quiet. Mrs. Hung sat on the hard plastic chair, her shoulders slumped, hands clasped tightly together in her lap. The door to Hoai Ca's room was only a few steps away, yet it felt like an entire world stood between them. Inside, her daughter fought silently for strength. Out here, she fought her own battle, one made of guilt, regret, and hope she was almost afraid to feel. She stared at the floor for a long time, unable to blink away the heaviness in her eyes. Her mind drifted back and forth between the present and all the years that led them to this moment. Everything felt like a loop. She couldn't escape every harsh word she had spoken, every decision she thought was for their own good. Every time she pushed too hard, demanded too much. She wondered how many of those moments had left invisible scars on Hoai Ca. How many times had she made things worse when she thought she was making them better? Her throat tightened. She had believed she was protecting her family, but maybe she had only pushed them away. Her thoughts slowly wandered to Hung, her son who had left home hurt and disappointed after too many arguments with her. She had blamed him back then. She told herself he was ungrateful, stubborn, immature, that he didn't understand the pressure she faced, the responsibilities she carried. But sitting here now in the unforgiving light of the hospital hallway, she realized how wrong she had been. She had been the stubborn one. She had been the one who refused to listen. She had been the one who mistook control for love. She let out a shaky sigh and rested her back against the wall. For the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to admit it. "I drove them away," she whispered to herself, the words barely audible. Her eyes burned. She didn't even notice the tear slipping down her cheek until it hit her hand. She remembered the day Hung walked out, the anger on his face, the hurt in his eyes, the crack in his voice when he told her that he couldn't breathe in that house anymore. She remembered the slam of the door. She remembered standing there frozen, believing he would come back in a day or two. He didn't, and Hoai Ca, sweet, patient, gentle Hoai Ca, had stayed behind. She tried to hold the family together, tried to calm her mother, tried to keep peace in a house that never felt peaceful. Mrs. Hung suddenly realized how much pressure she had placed on her daughter without ever acknowledging it. Now that same daughter lay motionless in a hospital bed, and all the things Mrs. Hung had ignored or brushed aside came crashing down on her. Only now, in this long, punishing silence, did she truly understand how deeply she had hurt them both. She pressed her palms against her eyes, breathing slowly as her chest tightened. "If only I could take it back," she whispered. If only she could rewind time. If only she had said less. listened more, been softer, been kinder. But regret couldn't fix anything. It couldn't wake Hoai Ca. It couldn't bring Hung home. All it could do was sit with her burning heavy and inescapable. She lifted her head and looked at the door again. The room behind it held her daughter, her fragile, brave, precious daughter. And inside that same fragile body was a tiny heartbeat, fighting to stay alive. The thought brought both relief and pain. She folded her hands and held them close to her chest. "Please, let her heal," she murmured, though she didn't even know who she was praying to. Let her wake up. Let her have another chance. And then another thought came, one she hadn't spoken aloud in years. Let Hung come home. Her voice broke on the last word. She had pushed him away, but she still believed deep down that he loved his sister, that he would run back the moment he knew she needed him. But she didn't know how to reach him. She didn't know if he would even pick up the phone. She didn't know if time had turned his sadness into anger. She didn't know if he still wanted a mother like her. Her shoulders trembled. She wiped her tears roughly with her sleeve. What she wanted more than anything was for her children to forgive her. Not because she deserved it, but because she had finally realized how wrong she had been. How much she had misunderstood love. How many moments she had ruined because she was too proud to admit her mistakes. She thought of Hoai Ca again, her gentle voice, her quiet strength, the way she always stepped aside to make peace. She never deserved any of this, Mrs. Hung whispered to herself. She should have had an easier life, a happier one. The guilt pressed down on her chest until she could hardly breathe. She closed her eyes and imagined a different life, one where Hoai Ca smiled freely without fear of disappointing her mother, one where Hung came home after work and sat at the dinner table without tension, one where they all talked without raised voices or tears. She imagined holding her grandchild, tiny, warm, safe. She imagined seeing her daughter laugh again. She imagined her son standing at the door of the hospital room, looking at her not with anger, but with forgiveness. Maybe that was too much to hope for, but she hoped anyway, because hope was all she had left. She leaned back, staring up at the ceiling, as if answers could fall from above. "If they forgive me," she whispered, "I won't waste a second chance." Her fingers trembled as she clasped them tightly together. "I'll do better. I promise I'll do better." The hallway felt endless, but her heart felt even heavier. Still beneath all the pain, beneath the regret and fear, a small spark of hope remained. The same spark that kept her sitting there instead of collapsing. The same spark that made her pray instead of giving up. She wanted her children back, not out of pride, not out of control, not out of obligation, but out of love. Real love. The kind she finally understood too late. She stood up slowly and took a breath. The door to Hoai Ca's room was still closed, but she walked toward it anyway. She placed her hand gently on the cold metal surface, as if touching it could reach her daughter. "I'll be right here," she whispered, "until you wake up. And when you do, I'll make things right." Her voice softened. "And if Hung ever comes home, I'll make things right with him too." For the first time that night, she believed it. Not because she was strong, but because love had finally taught her the one thing she had never understood. It's never too late to change, as long as the people you love are still alive to hear you say, "I'm sorry."